Mr. President, I rise today to honor a hero. I rise to remember the sacrifice of a man whom I am proud to have known. I rise to remember Sergeant Joe Szczerba of the Newcastle County Police, who was killed in the line of duty just this past Thursday night. Sergeant Szczerba and several other officers responded to a disorderly conduct call in Newcastle, Delaware, just before midnight. The officers arrived on the scene, set up a perimeter. Sergeant Szczerba spotted the suspect and gave chase. A seasoned officer, Sergeant Szczerba attempted to subdue the man, and in a very tough fight that ensued, he was stabbed. The suspect continued to resist arrest. Although seriously wounded, Sergeant Szczerba worked with 3 other officers to take the suspect into custody. Only then did he acknowledge his injury. Officers on the scene performed CPR until county paramedics arrived, but it wasn't enough. Sergeant Szczerba didn't make it. When I was county executive for Newcastle County for 6 years, after a particularly long or difficult day, as I was heading home, I would flip on the police scanner in my car and I'd listen to the chatter, to the calls from dispatch and the officers responding. I was always mindful in those hours that here I was heading home to my family and to safety. And here were our officers heading out on patrol into a dark and uncertain night. My phone rang at 5 a.m. this past Friday morning, and it was my friend, Chief Mike McGowan, the county's police chief, his voice weighted down with grief. It was the worst news I've ever received in public life. Newcastle County has only lost 1 previous officer in a line-of-duty death, when Corporal Paul Sweeney was in a traffic accident nearly 40 years ago in 1972, but never had an officer been murdered in the line of duty before. Each year as county executive, when I attended our annual police memorial, we would quietly pray that we would never know this day. Just roughly 2 weeks earlier, Delaware had marked the 2nd anniversary of the killing in the line of duty of another brave and decorated local police officer, Patrolman Chad Spicer of Georgetown. It was just too soon for this to have happened again. We all know that there's risk, grave risk, in policing, but this couldn't have happened again. Delaware is a state of neighbors, and we are still as a state mourning Chad's death, and we could not possibly have lost another brave police officer, but we did. And this Friday, he will be laid to rest. My state, Mr. President, is grieving. In the days that have passed, I have grappled with 2 questions. I've asked myself over and over, how is it that people continue to do these terrible and dangerous things? How is it that senseless violence continues to claim the lives of the innocent? And as I spoke at the graduation ceremony this past Friday for the Delaware State Police and the Municipal Police Academy and looked at the young men and women arrayed in front of me about to take their oath and put on their badge and take on willingly this most dangerous and honored profession, another question emerged to me. Why is it that we continue to have men and women who volunteer, who step forward, and who take on this most important and difficult task of preserving the peace, of protecting our communities? And what more can we do to support them, to protect them, and to honor them? These are the questions I challenge all of us to consider, Mr. President. Sergeant Joe Szczerba was on the Newcastle County Police Force for 18 years. He was greatly respected by his colleagues on the force and in the community he served. His wife, Kathy, his brothers, Ed, Gerald, and Stephen, his sisters, Nancy, and Karen, and a host of nieces and nephews survive him. Heaven today, Mr. President, is a safer place because Joe Szczerba is on patrol. He was a good man and a great cop, and he died a hero. He died doing what he was called to do, and he died doing what he loved to do. And for that, all of Delaware is grateful. We will treasure his memory and honor his sacrifice.